Okay, gang, this is Module 1, the beginning, the start of our journey. Now, what I'm going to do is just sort of glance through the courses, and I can see them on my computer as I record this, and I'm going to kind of go through this stuff and touch on certain points of it and hit some harder than others. With the Module 1, we have the forward, some testimonials, dedications, disclaimer, book course training content. This is what's going to be involved in this course or training. There's some introduction and some reality checks that we need to consider. Now, I could read through all this and it would take a while, so I just want to touch on a couple things as we move forward and begin this process. I'm going to talk about my past, a lot of the journeys that I've gone on, a lot of the frustrations, struggles, some of the pitfalls that I've noticed and learned from. We're going to find out about some of those. You can glance through the testimonies and find out how wonderful I am if you want to. But it's great having support from folks because you do a good job for people. A lot of good people out there that really want to help others who are kind and gracious, or at least attempt to be and attempt to do a good job, which is I always try to do that. So we're going to talk about superpowers in the course here, and that's one of the most important things that has to do with our integrity, our positive values, and our intent to always be serving others. I dedicate this to Jesus, who really makes everything happen, as it were, but also to all those who are looking to make a difference in the world and discover what that is they were put here to do. And that generally will be things that God kind of has designed into you with your skills and aptitudes and abilities that are unique to just you, and that how those designed elements, as it were, are made for you to be doing things that match that and fit in with that. So we're going to be looking at that and eventually end up doing things that we love to do. Obviously, with the disclaimer, you want to not do anything without consulting professionals when it comes to investments, physicality, doing things that are physical, anything that has any processes that need to be considered with building or designing or what have you. Need to be considered with the advice and that stuff, and permits and certifications, licenses, if you're going to be needing that with your business, with your, I call it a thing or a service that you will be creating and providing for folks who like, want, and need it, and being able to do that and continually get better at that, and then your product and your skills or services can grow and become more. And again, this is something that we're doing that we love to do. For me, it has to do with creativity. The course is going to include many things. It's going to talk about who's in charge. We're going to look at the pilot. I'm using an analogy of a pilot who learns how to fly an airplane, because kind of our lives are sort of like learning how to fly a plane, and then we take off and we launch. Sort of the analogy with eagles in the nest. Eagles, you can crack their eggs themselves out of the egg in the nest high up in the trees, but they have to grow and get strong and learn how to flex their little wings and get better and better at learning how that works, and then eventually they jump out of the nest. They got to fly. So we got to learn how to be good pilots so that we'll learn how to actually fly our planes. So that talks about the way we think. The power of our thinking is very important to what we're doing here. Some of the things that come to mind, how our mindset is. Where's our mindset at? Are we, whatever our mindset is really sort of directs and guides us, and it's a very powerful thing to become aware of. Where is our mindset? Am I thinking positive or negative? And that has to do also with like what do we chew on? And I use the analogy of an apple a day. It keeps the doctor away, if you remember that one. So we talk about definitions, changing feelings. I'm going through the contents of this course. Superpowers, again, this is all section 1 in pilot training, and that's honesty, integrity, positive values, forgiveness, and gratitude. Those things are things that are kind of keys to having a happy, successful, functional, fulfilling, and rewarding life. And it all tends to go back to how are we serving others. So then we get down and we look at some of my journey. We look at my background in the second section, which is taking off and flying. And so that's a little bit about my specific story, and I have that in my book, Making a Living Doing What You Do, is what I wrote as well, and that's also available for like $9 or whatever. But that was sort of a book I put together, and then I developed this course out of that. So as we're coming down the journey here in this course, we're now looking at how do we take off and fly? How do we get our thing or service into the market, share it with others, help them see the value of it, and we adjust, pivot as to what it is and how we're making it, if it's a thing you can hold, or our services, if we're providing something for folks, how can we improve on that? How can we make it better? How can we make sure we're not getting blown out by our competition? And so we break that down into, who would want your thing, research, and getting feedback, counting the costs. We have to think about this before we get too crazy ahead of ourselves and end up with a massive, investment of funds without really thinking through how this is all going to pan out. You can't always plan all the future potentialities, but it's really a lot that you can do to assume and guess and predict some of the things that might come your way that would get in the way of our success. So counting the cost is important. Then we talk about marketing, getting the word out, social media world is a whole thing. And one of the things I've done is give it away, and that was how I started my business, both the sand sculpture, which we'll talk about, and you see that in my biography, and the faux rock work that I've been doing now for decades. How do you understand your pricing? How much do you charge? What's the right fee to charge for your service or your thing, the cost? And then we talk about why businesses fail, scaling and growing. It's an exciting thing to do, but you can get ahead of yourself, so you want to figure out how to do that in a healthy process in a functional way. And again, we're trying to use our head about this stuff, not just our emotions and our enthusiasm, because I know for me, my enthusiasm, my passion can jump ahead in vast quantities of time to where I've got this great thriving business, but the between part is the part that is, I don't want to kind of think about that. It's too much work. So these are some of the mental things that I've had to learn about and try to get a handle on, because you can kind of shoot yourself in the foot, so to speak, by jumping ahead and investing. And I've got some funny stories about that. So scaling and growing is the thing. And then we have the final epilogue, the review, some of my notes, some of the contacts, some of the tools and places you can go to get support with what you want to do. So that's the content. I made a printed copy for it for you to print out. You can also print out these mini posters, which is part of this process. So print those out, put them in the bathroom. When you sit down and you're doing your meditation in the morning or whatever, look at this stuff. Think about the stuff you're trying to get stuck into your gray matter. It's hard for it to stick. It's harder for me to get it to stick now at 65 almost, for sure. So print the little mini posters out and put those around the house where you can, and just keep putting this stuff in. Repetition, spaced repetition is how we learn stuff a lot of times. So you can go through the preface and a lot of things that I'm going to go through here. I'm kind of doing a scan on them right now, just sharing them with you in this video. But it's, as the preface says, it's time to make things happen instead of just waiting for things to happen to us. And so that's really where you take your power back. A lot of times we have power being given away. We don't realize it, but we let other people influence us, direct our path. And we really want to start to be able to take good advice and critique from others, but also learn from it, but not let it totally stifle us and stop us in our tracks. So we talk about where to start. The introduction talks about experience, challenge, overcoming things. What is the process? So the introduction you can check out. You can read that through in the module 1. And everything that we see in our lives, pretty much outside of being in nature, was made by somebody. All right, somebody did something to provide a service, or they improved on something. So the key to being able to do that isn't not just the steps that they take, the actual practical steps to putting a piece of wood together to make a beautiful craft piece or what have you, or to build an engine, or to build a rocket like Elon Musk is all into nowadays. It's 2023 when I'm putting this course out. And so those are the practical steps, but it's the part inside here that really is the key. You can have people with the exact ability, maybe even others with more ability, but they don't have the part between the ears figured out. They get stuck and they get tripped up by some of these old things that we can think about that aren't serving us, that aren't helping us grow and move forward into the place we need to be mentally, so we can go ahead and get things going. So when you get through this, the reality check ends the first module. You can just read through this stuff, print out the mini posters when you get to them. They're just a sample in this module 1. But sort of that's the idea. So we're trying to get this content into our brains and getting it to stick. So forgive me if I ramble on too long, but I just wanted to kind of give you sort of a textual sense or a taste of how this is going to work. So I'm going to go through each module and review it, and then you can read through it and then do the worksheets and take the time to do so. All right. So thank you again for investing in this. I hope you enjoy this process and this journey. And so that's Module 1. Let's take some time and go into Module 2. All right.